My mother was a remarkable person who left an imprint on those around her. Imprint may be a polite way of putting it. My mom had a favorite poem, which I think, you know, sometimes we choose poems and sometimes they choose us. And I don't know if you know this, but her favorite poem was the poem Invictus. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. And whatever gods may be, my mother was studiously agnostic. She was not a person who was overly sentimental. About 12 years ago, she was going through a great challenge in the hospital with my sister by her side, and she was just about to come out of it. It was a close call for her, but she had 12 good years after that. But I don't know if you know, she was delirious, and my sister at one point said, "Mom, God wants you to spend more time with Zachary," who was her young son then, who's now 15 and a little stud muffin, track star, football player and everything, but then he was just 3. Maybe God wants you to spend more time with Zachary. My mother roused herself from her delirium and said, "That's ridiculous. God doesn't do personal favors." And then went back to wherever she was. As she recalls it, she kept on saying, "Why don't they take the body?" Because she was that far gone. But she came back, and we've had, over the last few years, remarkable times. She was also kind of tough. My mom was really a lot tougher than I am. I don't think I ever saw my mom cry, but she had a son who did it for her. And I remember in kindergarten once, I missed a cue and she was there, and I was supposed to join the singing group for the other kindergartners. I missed my cue and I was late, and I came up and my mother said to her friend, she said, "Don't look at him, he'll cry." If anything starts happening here, don't look at him. Don't look at him. So the next stanza of that poem that was so favorite for her was, "In the fell clutch of circumstance I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance I am bloody but unbowed. I remain bloody but unbowed." And of course my mom went through some tough things, but a lot of people don't remember, in the late 60s and early 70s, New York was in turmoil. She was a chapter chairman for the American Federation of Teachers. She was a teacher most of her life. And when she wasn't teaching the public school kids, she was teaching me. And this was a turbulent time. This was when the Taylor Act in New York State had just been passed, making it illegal for public employees to strike, so naturally they went on strike. You may have heard of a guy named Albert Shanker, who was the president of the American Federation of Teachers at the time, went on to be head of the AFL-CIO. Anyway, so my mom was a chapter chairman. 950,000 kids were out of school, and the strike didn't end until it was successful. And they had Christmas decorations in the department stores. Now imagine what kind of guts that takes. My mom had guts, and she also was kind of pure and naive about some things. When she was, during World War II, working at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, she innocently asked in a memo why it was green on ships, and apparently there was a fair amount of money changing hands so that wealthy people's kids could go to ships that never left port. So my mother got a promotion out of that department. Then, you know, my mom would have been the last one who would have approved of me being overly sad on this occasion, even though I probably am overly sad by her tastes. She would have said, and this is what she said, and I quote, "Nobody will say Poor Florence, she died in the prime of life. She lived to 92, and she was herself. And I can tell you this, I was there, she was herself to the end, which is a great blessing. I think the next stanza goes, beyond this veil of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the passing of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. I can tell you, my mother really didn't believe there was a horror in the shade. She had no fear of death whatsoever. Now, not unreasonably, she had a fear of a bad way out, a bad death. She had a great death. She was a creature of this world. She was not overly concerned with the next world. She was a person who enjoyed her politics, who enjoyed young people, who enjoyed life. And she enjoyed it, and there's a famous story from Yohanan ben Zakkai. It's in the Midrashim. And what basically the story is this. If you're holding a sapling in your hand, and someone tells you the Messiah has come, finish planting the sapling, then go and check. And my mother was definitely of that ilk. She would probably tell the Messiah, I'm busy, and planted a few more just to get it done. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul. And if there's ever a person who embodied those words, it was my mom. She called the shots to the end. As a matter of fact, after the end. She left a letter for my sister to make sure, with the will, she left a letter for my sister with some helpful hints about how she could improve her life. And our trip to Israel, which, without, and it was touch and go as to whether it could happen. I mean, she had a surgery here and a broken hip there, and we were really, it was a close call. We actually, Bridge and I went out there for the sole purpose of trying to talk her into it. But finally, talk about the person who doesn't fear the menace of the years, which finds and shall find her unafraid. You know what it was that actually got her to go to Israel? It wasn't anything that I said. It's that she was speaking to a counselor, and the counselor said, well, how would you feel if you didn't go? And she said, I'd feel like a coward. And from that moment on, it was a done deal. Because there's one thing my mother would not allow. That is, she would not feel like a coward. We went to Israel. We have a map there. We went all over. She enjoyed wonderful health. We were there. I don't think I was more, during the days when we were walking and everything, we were together in the car, within inches of each other, just loving each other and being together and having this wonderful experience together. And, what can you say about a woman who's debating Islam and the book of, and the Koran, the Holy Koran? She's debating it in a mosque with our guide. What about these suicide bombers? Can you hear that, Mom? We're looking at the Jerusalem archaeological site. Western Wall's to our left. That away. That away. And the call to prayer, it's now, looks like 12:25.
Messages. First saved message. Hi, Bridge, Florence. I just picked up the book in the mail and I went through it. It is just wonderful. I mean, I can go through it 1,000,000 times. I'm going to keep it out so I can. I think you did a marvelous job and you covered everything. And it's just great. I love it. I mean, it brings it all back. I mean, you didn't miss a trick. except my asking the guy at the mosque a question. Otherwise, you've got everything, and even about pictures of Randy and Joe at the wall and me, and then sleeping on the beach. I think that's great. And it's just, and the pictures of Tel Aviv are just fantastic.
Rabbi Mirrel here.
Right on cue.
Who?
Wow.
Rabbi Mirrel, come forward, please.
Sorry, Rabbi.
And Julie,
Shalom.
hello, how are you?
Hi,
I was just sharing some of my thoughts about my mom, Rabbi.
Your mom was great.
And
God bless you.
I wanted to go and I won't put you on the spot.
Well, no, you went up here with
But,
spot.
but I want to say that I did quote Rabbi Yohanan ben Zakkai for the principle that if you have a sapling in your hand and someone says the Mashiach has come, finish planting the tree and then go and check, which was very much my mother's sentiment of attending to the things in this world.
Absolutely. And just an honor to be here. We had a beautiful chance to honor your mom at our temple a few weeks ago. You were there, and
I felt sorry for the other deceased. You gave her so much airtime, you know?
well, again, you know.
She wouldn't have minded the first billing, though.
No, not at all. We give the immediate person the honor.
Thank you.
But you know, she was a woman, what we say in the Jewish tradition from the book of Proverbs, Eshet Chayil, a woman of courage. That's who she was. Courage to stand up for her convictions